Lumber has never been more expensive. 2x4s are more than 3 times their typical price. Other wood products that we use to build houses, like plywood, have also soared. The increases are thanks to an unexpected boom in demand. Even in the broad rally that has pushed up commodity prices across the board, from crude oil to corn, the dramatic climb in wood prices stands out. Lumber futures have more than tripled since the rally began in April 2020. No one expected wood prices to soar, not even sawmills, lumber dealers, and others who profit from rising prices. Here's how lumber prices climbed to records during the pandemic, who has profited, and why those who grow the trees haven't benefited at all. When the pandemic set in, sawmills shut down like many other businesses. Before the lockdown, it was shaping up to be a strong home building season. But when the global economy ground to a halt in 2020, new housing construction in the US plummeted.
At the onset of the pandemic, lumber mills shut down, dealers liquidated their inventories, and speculators started shorting lumber futures, expecting prices to plunge. No one thought that there was a housing boom coming, or a remodeling boom.
Hunkered down homeowners remodeled en masse, and low mortgage rates drove demand for suburban housing, while restaurants raced to construct outdoor dining accommodations. Lumber and plywood started flying off shelves. The building boom lifted the share price of home improvement giants Lowe's and Home Depot ahead of the broader market. Wood was in short supply. Sawmills ramped up capacity but couldn't catch up, leading to a surge in prices.
Besides prices rising, demand is such that some people can't even get the right amounts or the right products of lumber. And you're seeing this throughout, across products, from a 2x4 to plywood to engineered products for home builders.
Sawmills have been big beneficiaries. Owners of southern mills have seen profits skyrocket, and their share prices have surged. Farther up the wood supply chain, those who grow the trees that become the 2x4s have been left out. Timber growers supply mills with logs, which are sawed into lumber and mashed into pulp. Prices for logs and lumber usually move in unison, but lately their prices have diverged. Much of the nation's logs are harvested in the US South, and southern growers have gained nothing from the run-up in prices for finished lumber. Earl and Wanda Barrs have been growing timber for 35 years in central Georgia. They say prices for their timber have not kept pace with the run-up in lumber.
The landowner, us, we haven't benefited from the increase in the price of lumber.
When I was a procurement forester, we were paying $25 a ton for saw timber on the stump 40 years ago. And if you bring that forward today, the market is $25 or less on the stump today. And that's in constant dollars. That's not taking into account inflation and other things that have gone up to grow those trees.
The problem is that there's so many trees. Between 1980 and 2020, the volume of wood per acre of timberland in many southern counties has more than quadrupled.
In the 1980s, the federal government paid a lot of landowners in the South to plant trees. The government wanted to take cropland out of rotation and to stop having a lot of corn and soybeans, so the prices would rise in those markets. And they paid people to grow trees because those trees would sit on the land for decades and just grow and accumulate value and eventually be ready to be made into things like lumber and plywood.
Decades later, many of those trees are being harvested, which has flooded the market with an abundance of timber.
There's so many trees, in fact, that mills can basically name their price for the logs that they take in and saw into boards. The supply and demand is so out of whack that analysts and a lot of investors in sawmill companies think it could be a decade or two before enough trees are cut down that supply and demand is back in balance, even with the increased demand we're seeing today for wood products.
Earl Barr says the consolidation of the market has also made it difficult to sell timber.
20 years ago, if we'd have had a tract of timber that we would have put up for bids, we'd have gotten at least 10 independent bids, competitive bids for that tract of wood. Now we're seeing fewer than 5, if you're lucky. We're not looking at what is happening to our markets. Are we playing on a level playing field? Are we able to put our trees into a truly competitive marketplace?
Analysts do expect lumber prices will eventually go down, but with the housing market continuing to run red hot, the price continues to rise.